The Galactic Council chamber stood tall, filled with light from stars projected on its dome ceiling. It was built to remind every visitor of the galaxy's endless unity, but on this day the air was heavy with silence and fear. Leaders from many worlds sat in their places, some with scales, some with feathers, some glowing faintly with strange colors. They had always spoken with pride about their wisdom, but now their faces showed only worry. For the first time in centuries, they did not know what to do. Margaret Lewis, the human ambassador, stood quietly near the center of the chamber. She had been there many years ago, back when humans first joined the council. But now she stood as a shadow from the past, for humans no longer held any seats in the council. They had left decades ago, walking away from endless debates and broken promises. Their absence had once been dismissed as unimportant. Today it felt like a wound that could not heal. The voices of alien leaders began to rise. A scaled elder named Varnak pounded his claws on the table. "We cannot hold back the Drakkar swarm. Our fleets fall apart. Our colonies burn. We need help." His voice shook with anger and fear. Another leader, a tall figure with shimmering skin named Alora, lifted her hands. "And where is this help to come from? Our neighbors betray us. Trade routes are gone. Even our own allies fail us." The chamber erupted into shouts. Some called for stronger fleets. Others called for retreat. Many blamed each other. For all their wisdom, for all their laws and speeches, none had an answer. They looked up at the star map above them, but it only reminded them of how small and weak they had become. In the back of the chamber, some whispered a name that had not been spoken in years. Humans. The word carried both hope and unease. Long ago, when humans had joined the council, they had been underestimated. A young species from a small blue planet, they were thought to be reckless, short-lived, and unwise. But humans had proven otherwise. They solved problems quickly, acted boldly, and brought ideas no one else dared to imagine. While the elder races argued for decades, humans built ships, saved colonies, and tamed frontiers. Their presence had changed everything, but they had also broken traditions. They asked questions no one wanted to answer. They refused to bow to rules that slowed progress. They embarrassed the elders by showing faster results. And in the end, their bluntness caused fights the council could not accept. Humans walked away, leaving behind a single warning: if you do not adapt, you will not endure. At the time, the council laughed. They told themselves humans were arrogant children, doomed to fail without guidance. They believed the galaxy would continue as it always had. But now, with enemies closing in and chaos spreading, the memory of humanity was no longer something to mock. It was something they feared they had lost forever. Margaret looked around the chamber as the arguments grew louder. She was old now, her hair gray, her eyes tired but sharp. She remembered the day her people left. She remembered walking out of this very hall, her heart heavy, knowing the council did not understand. And now, seeing the same leaders filled with fear, she knew her people had been right. The galaxy was unprepared. One by one, the voices grew quiet again. They all knew the truth. The council was weak. Their fleets were crumbling. Their colonies were falling. And above all, they had no vision for what came next. The galaxy had become a house without its builders. A younger alien leader, nervous and trembling, spoke from his seat. "What if we called for them? What if we sent a plea? The humans, they might still be out there." The suggestion hung in the air like a fragile thread. Some leaders gasped. Others hissed in anger. To ask the humans to return was to admit failure, to admit that the council, this great pillar of wisdom, was powerless without them. For many it was unthinkable, but for others it was the only hope left. Varnak snarled. "They abandoned us. They turned their backs. Why should we bow now?" Alora's voice softened. "Because we may not survive without them." The chamber fell silent again. Margaret did not speak. She only watched, her hands folded. Knowing the council was standing at the edge of a cliff, she knew that her people had not vanished. They had simply chosen another path, one far away from the endless arguing halls of the council. Where they had gone and what they had become, even she did not fully know. Rumors spoke of human fleets that no longer resembled the old ships, of colonies that had advanced beyond the reach of alien eyes, of discoveries hidden deep beyond the edges of mapped space. The silence in the chamber grew heavier. The star map above them showed countless lights, but it also showed shadows where chaos spread. The leaders knew they had no answer, no strength, no unity. Only one question remained, echoing through every mind. Could the galaxy survive without the humans? Margaret closed her eyes for a moment and took a slow breath. She thought of Earth, of the people who had chosen to walk away. She thought of the words spoken that day. If you do not adapt, you will not endure. Now, after all these years, the truth of those words filled the chamber. The council was realizing too late what humanity had meant. No vote was taken. No decision was reached. The chamber simply sat in silence, filled with fear and memory. The plea for help was unspoken but heavy, waiting for someone somewhere to hear it. Long before the council chamber filled with silence and fear, there had been a time when humans walked among them as equals. It was a memory buried in the minds of the oldest leaders, yet it came alive in whispers whenever trouble grew too large. In those early days, when Earth first joined the council, the galaxy had been full of hope. Many thought a young, spirited species would bring energy to their order. Few realized just how much humanity would change the balance of everything. Daniel Carter was one of the first human representatives. He was not tall or commanding, but his eyes held a kind of fire that others found impossible to ignore. He listened to endless debates that stretched for weeks, and then, with a few simple words, he would cut through the noise. He did not speak to impress, nor did he fear offending the elders. He simply wanted solutions. Some loved him for this. Others hated him. Yet no one could deny that when Daniel spoke, action followed. Maria Johnson was another. She was an engineer before she was an ambassador, and she carried that spirit with her. Where the council hesitated, she built. When a distant colony faced a failing life support system, Maria did not wait for a vote. She designed a fix, sent human crews, and saved millions of lives before the council even finished drafting their proposal. It became a pattern. The humans acted while others argued. They did not mean to embarrass the elders, but that was the effect. The galaxy soon noticed. Colonies once ignored by the council suddenly thrived under human guidance. Trade routes that had been unsafe for centuries became reliable when human fleets patrolled them. Diseases that had spread quietly for generations were cured with human medicine. The humans seemed to carry an endless stream of ideas, each one bold and unpredictable. It was as if they had no respect for limits, and that, more than anything, unsettled the elder races. At first, the council tolerated them. Let the humans burn themselves out, the elders said. They rush where patience is needed. They do not understand the weight of time. But the humans did not burn out. Instead, they grew stronger. Their numbers increased. Their colonies flourished. Their inventions spread faster than anyone imagined. And most of all, their voices grew louder in the council chamber. The elders began to feel challenged. The humans questioned old laws. They asked why some colonies were left to starve while others were given endless resources. They demanded to know why debates lasted decades while people died in silence. These were questions the council did not want to face. For centuries, their traditions had been a shield, protecting them from hard truths. But humans tore that shield apart with plain words. It came to a breaking point during a famine on the outer rim. Crops had failed and millions faced hunger. The council prepared a 10-year study to find solutions. The humans refused to wait. Daniel Carter stood before the chamber and spoke firmly. If you delay, they will be dead. We can fix this now. And they did. Human ships delivered food. Human scientists developed new strains of crops. Within months, the famine ended. To the colonies, it was a miracle. To the council, it was an insult. The elder leaders gathered in secret. They spoke bitterly about humanity's boldness, their disregard for law, their refusal to bend. They do not respect the council, one said. They make us look weak, another added. Yet even as they plotted, they could not deny that the galaxy was safer, stronger and brighter with humans in it. And perhaps that truth hurt most of all. The tension grew until the humans made their choice. Margaret Lewis, then a younger ambassador, stood in the chamber one final time. Her words were quiet but sharp. You cling to rules while the galaxy suffers. We have no wish to fight with you, but we cannot waste our lives in endless talk. If you will not change, then we will walk our own path. The silence that followed was heavy. Some begged them to stay. Others laughed. Certain humanity would fail outside the council's walls, and so the humans left. Their departure was not loud. They did not slam doors or make threats. They simply turned away and disappeared into the stars. For a time, the council celebrated. They told themselves the troublemakers were gone. They promised that peace would return. But peace did not return. Slowly, cracks began to appear. Without human ships, piracy rose again. Without human medicine, diseases spread faster. Without human voices, the chamber grew quiet but also empty. The colonies noticed too. They remembered who had saved them, who had listened, who had acted, and they whispered the same question. Why had the council driven the humans away? Years passed. At first, the council told itself humanity had vanished into weakness. But rumors spread. Traders spoke of strange ships beyond the rim, faster than anything seen before. Miners whispered of human settlements thriving where no one else dared to build. Some claimed entire systems had been transformed under human hands, turned from wastelands into gardens. Each rumor painted a picture not of weakness but of strength. And with every rumor, the council's pride felt smaller. Now, decades later, the truth had caught up with them. The galaxy faced threats it could not contain. The Drakkar swarm pushed deeper into inhabited space. Old alliances broke apart under fear. Fleets that once carried pride were scattered and broken. And in the chamber, the leaders at last understood what they had lost. They had not only lost humanity's ideas, they had lost humanity's courage. Margaret Lewis remained as the last thread between them and the past. She had aged, but her eyes still carried the same fire she once saw in Daniel Carter and Maria Johnson. She remembered the laughter of the elders when humans warned them. She remembered the day her people walked away. And now, as she watched the chamber filled with despair, she thought of their final words. If you do not adapt, you will not endure. The words echoed in her mind as the council shouted, argued, and blamed one another. They had not adapted. They had clung to rules while the galaxy shifted around them, and now they were paying the price. For Margaret, it was not a surprise. For the others, it was a nightmare. The whispers began again. Could humanity be reached? Would they listen? Would they return? No one knew the answer. But one thing was certain. The council, once so proud, was no longer laughing at humanity. They were pleading for them. And in their hearts, every leader knew that if the humans did return, they would not be the same as before. They would be something greater, something the galaxy had never seen before. The story of humanity's rise and their departure was not just history now. It was a reminder, a shadow that hung over every meeting, every argument, every failure. And the council, facing its darkest time, could not escape the truth. Humanity had left them behind. And perhaps, just perhaps, humanity had been right to do so. The galaxy was breaking apart. The Drakkar swarm spread faster than the council could react. Whole colonies went dark, their signals lost forever. Trade ships were attacked on every route. Pirates grew bold, carving out territories where council law no longer reached. Fear spread from star to star, and even the oldest civilizations began to tremble. The council sent fleets, but their ships were too slow, their strategies too predictable, their commanders bound by endless rules. Every day the council argued while the galaxy crumbled around them. On a lonely council station at the edge of known space, the leaders waited for news. They had sent pleas into every channel, every forgotten relay, every path that might carry a signal to those who had once stood with them. They begged for help. They begged for the humans. Weeks turned into months, and months turned into silence. Many believed no answer would ever come. Some said humanity was gone forever, lost to time and distance. Others whispered that the humans had grown beyond them, choosing to watch from the shadows. Then, one quiet cycle, something changed. A signal arrived, but it was not like any they had seen before. It carried no council codes, no familiar patterns. It was sharp, efficient, and strong. The station's sensors strained to understand it, but before they could react, a ship appeared. It came out of folded space without warning. No jump signature, no detectable trail. One moment the station's screens were empty, and the next, a vast, dark ship hovered above them. Its shape was unlike anything in the council's archives. Sleek lines cut through the void. Its hull seemed alive, shifting with faint ripples of light. The ship did not announce itself. It simply existed, calm and commanding. Panic filled the council chamber. Some leaders shouted orders to raise shields. Others cried for evacuation. The station trembled with fear, but before anything could be done, the ship sent a simple message. Requesting entry. The chamber froze. The voice was clear, human, and steady. A shuttle detached from the massive ship and glided toward the station. It docked without resistance, as if the station's defenses had already been bypassed. From it stepped a single figure. He wore no council robes, no military badges, no symbols of allegiance. His clothes were simple, but his presence filled the hall. His name was Robert Hayes. Robert walked calmly into the chamber. His face was familiar, human, yet something about him unsettled the council. His eyes held both warmth and power, as if he had seen things they could not imagine. He looked at the alien leaders, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. He stood at the center of the chamber, where once his people had been mocked and dismissed. And he spoke only 2 words, "You called." The chamber erupted in voices. Some cried with relief, others with anger. Varnak, the scaled elder, slammed his claws against the table. "You abandoned us, and now you return when we are broken?" His voice shook with both rage and fear. Elora, with shimmering skin, leaned forward, her tone desperate. "Please, if you have returned, you know why. The Drekar cannot be stopped. Our colonies are dying. You must help us." Robert did not raise his voice. He simply waited until the noise quieted. "You asked for help, and we came." His words were simple, yet they carried weight. Every leader in the chamber knew that humanity had changed. This was not the same species that had once begged for respect in these halls. They had returned, but not as members of the council. They had returned as something greater. Behind Robert, the screens flickered. Images appeared, fleets of ships, human ships, but unlike any the council had ever seen. They were sleek, powerful, and strange. Some seemed to bend light itself. Others looked alive, as if grown rather than built. They moved with precision and speed that defied council understanding. For a moment, the leaders sat in silence, stunned by the vision before them. Varnak broke the silence with a snarl. "And why should we trust you? You left us to rot. You think we will kneel before you now?" Robert's gaze turned to him, calm and unshaken. "We did not leave you to rot. We warned you. You chose not to listen, and now you call because you have no choice. We did not come for your pride. We came for the lives being lost." The words stung. They carried no cruelty, only truth. The council could not deny it. They had laughed at humanity's warnings. They had mocked their impatience. And now here they were, begging for the very people they had driven away. The chamber fell silent again. Margaret Lewis, now old and tired, rose from her seat. Her eyes met Robert's, and for the first time in decades she felt hope. She spoke softly, her voice shaking. "I knew you would return. Not for them, but for the people." "Always for the people." Robert nodded once. "Always for the people." The council leaders shifted uneasily. For centuries they had believed themselves the center of galactic order. Now they saw the truth. Humanity had outgrown them. They were no longer the bold newcomers seeking a place among the stars. They were something else, something the galaxy did not yet understand. Outside, the human ship hovered in silence. Its presence was a reminder. Humanity had gone beyond the limits of the council. They had become the answer to questions the galaxy had not yet asked. And now, as Robert Hayes stood before the council, the galaxy realized it was no longer leading humanity. Humanity was leading the galaxy. In that moment, fear and awe filled the chamber. For the first time, the council did not see humans as reckless children or troublesome allies. They saw them as what they had become, the future. The council chamber was filled with uneasy silence as Robert Hayes stood calmly in the center. His presence carried a weight that none of the leaders could ignore. He had not shouted, nor demanded, yet his words cut deeper than any speech made in that hall for centuries. The council had begged for help, offered promises of power and influence, but Robert's answer was steady and clear. "We are not here to rule. We are here because you are drowning." The words struck at the very heart of the council's pride. For ages, they had been the authority of the galaxy. They made laws, settled disputes, and claimed to guard civilization. But in truth, they had become slow and heavy, clinging to their rules even as danger grew. And now, the very species they had dismissed as reckless stood before them with solutions they could not imagine. Behind Robert, more humans entered the chamber. Some wore the clothes of engineers, others of doctors, others of commanders. They carried no weapons, yet their quiet confidence unsettled the elders. These were not the humans who had once argued for seats in the council. These were men and women who had seen galaxies beyond maps, who carried knowledge the council had never dreamed of. One of them, a woman named Claire Mitchell, stepped forward. She carried a small device no larger than her hand. She placed it on the table, and with a soft hum, the device projected a map. It showed colonies in ruin, trade routes cut and the Drakkar swarm spreading like a shadow. But then the map shifted. It showed human fleets moving across the galaxy, colonies rebuilt in days, diseases wiped out with new cures, energy systems that did not need fuel but drew directly from the vacuum of space. The leaders gasped. To them, these things seemed impossible, but the humans had made them real. Elora, the shimmering-skinned leader, leaned closer. Her voice trembled. These are gifts beyond measure. What do you ask for them? Claire looked at her with calm eyes. We ask nothing. These are not for your power. They are for the people. Always for the people, the council murmured nervously. For centuries, aid had always come with chains. To receive resources meant giving up freedom. To accept protection meant bending to another's will. Yet here were the humans offering the impossible freely. It confused them. It frightened them. Varnak slammed his claws on the table. This is dangerous. Nothing is given without price. What game are you playing, humans? Robert turned his gaze toward him, steady and unshaken. No game. We learned long ago that survival does not come from hoarding power. It comes from building strength together. We will not chain you. We will not sit in your chambers and waste lives in talk. We will act. You may join us or you may watch. But know this, we will not stop. The words rippled through the chamber. For the first time, the council felt what it meant to be small. They saw that humanity did not return to seek approval or power. They had returned because lives were being lost, because the galaxy was falling into despair. The humans had moved beyond politics. They had become something different. Over the next weeks, the proof came alive. Human engineers landed on broken colonies. They built shelters in hours, power grids in days. Where starvation loomed, they grew crops in barren soil using machines that seemed like magic. Where sickness spread, doctors arrived with cures that worked instantly. The council sent observers expecting to find tricks or hidden costs, but all they saw was results. The people cheered and hope returned. But hope was not the only thing that returned. Fear also grew. The methods of humanity were not gentle. When pirates struck, human fleets did not negotiate or stall. They appeared without warning, struck with precision, and left only silence. When the Drakkar swarm advanced, human ships met them with weapons the council could not understand. Entire swarms burned away in minutes. To the colonies, this was salvation. To the council, it was a reminder of how far humanity had gone. One day, the council chamber gathered to hear reports. Elora rose, her face lit with both awe and unease. They have done in weeks what we could not do in years. Colonies once lost are thriving. Fleets once broken are now secure. But their ways are frightening. They do not ask. They act. Margaret Lewis, who had once been the lone human voice in the chamber, rose slowly. Her voice was tired but clear. That is who they are. They never waited for permission to save lives. They never asked if it would offend you. They saw what needed to be done and did it. That is what you feared. And that is what you need, Varnak hissed. And when they decide we are the ones in the way, when their power no longer stops at saving lives but at shaping them, what then? Robert's voice came steady from the center of the chamber. We do not seek to shape you. We do not seek to rule you. But know this, if you harm the innocent, if you let pride stand in the way of survival, then yes, we will stand against you. Not for ourselves, but for the people you should have protected. The silence that followed was heavy. The council, so used to being untouchable, realized they were being judged, not by cruelty, but by a standard they had failed to uphold. Outside the chamber, the galaxy changed quickly. Stories spread of human ships arriving in time to save colonies. Miners sang of human engineers who made their work safer. Families told of doctors who cured sicknesses that had lasted for generations. And everywhere whispers grew. Humanity had become more than a people. They had become a force, yet within the council, fear lingered. They no longer held the future in their hands. They could no longer command or contain. They could only watch as humans acted. Some leaders hated this. Others accepted it with relief. But none could deny the truth. The galaxy was no longer theirs to guide. It was humanity's to lead, not by law, not by chains, but by action. And so the chamber sat in silence once more, listening as Robert Hayes spoke the words that echoed across the stars. We do not rule. We do not command, we act. And if you wish for a future, then act with us, or watch as we move forward without you. The chamber of the Galactic Council was silent once more, but it was not the silence of pride or power. It was the silence of leaders who realized they were no longer at the center of the galaxy. For weeks they had watched humans work, watched them rebuild, heal, and protect. They had seen colonies saved in days, enemies pushed back with ease, and hope returned to places where only despair had lived. Yet with each act, the Council felt smaller, as though the galaxy no longer needed their words, only humanity's actions. On this day, Margaret Lewis stood once more. Her body was frail, her hair silver, but her voice carried with the same strength it once had decades ago. She looked around the chamber at the gathered leaders and then at the humans who now stood apart. Not as members of the Council, but as something else. She began to speak slowly, but each word was clear. You asked for our return, and we are here. But you must understand, we will not sit in these seats again. We will not argue while the galaxy burns. We will not wait for votes while people die. We will stand with those who seek progress, who embrace courage, who dare to imagine more. The rest must decide for themselves, her words struck deep. The Council had always believed they could control the direction of the galaxy, that every species must bend to their rules. But now the humans refused to bend, refused to return to the old ways. They offered help freely, but they would not be chained by law or custom. Alora, the shimmering leader, bowed her head. She spoke softly, her voice filled with both fear and relief. Then we must choose. Either remain in the shadows of our traditions or step forward with you. Varnak growled, his claws tapping against the table. And if we choose neither? If we wish to remain as we were? Robert Hayes turned his gaze toward him, calm but firm. Then you will remain. But the galaxy will not wait. The people will not wait. They will see who acts and who does not, and they will follow the ones who do. The chamber fell silent again. Every leader knew he was right. Already colonies looked more to humanity than to the Council. Already whispers grew of human fleets and human doctors, of a force that acted without hesitation. The galaxy was shifting and the Council could not stop it. Outside the chamber, the evidence was clear. New colonies thrived where humans guided. Old trade routes reopened under their protection. The Drakkar swarm, once feared unstoppable, had been pushed back by human fleets. They used weapons no one understood, ships that seemed alive and strategies beyond imagination. And yet they did not conquer. They did not take territory or demand tribute. They gave, they built, and they moved on. For the people, humanity became a legend come alive. But legends carried weight. Some feared them, whispering that no power should be so great. Others saw them as saviors, the light in the darkness. Everywhere one truth spread. The galaxy would never be the same. In the chamber, the Council's oldest members sat with heavy hearts. For centuries, they had been the guardians of order. Now they realized they had been guardians of stagnation. They had kept the galaxy still while humanity had moved forward. And now the galaxy had chosen to move forward too. Margaret looked once more at Robert Hayes and then at Claire Mitchell, and at the others who stood with quiet strength. She saw in them the fire she had once seen in Daniel Carter and Maria Johnson, the first humans to walk in these halls. It was the same fire that had been dismissed, mocked, and pushed away. Now that fire lit the galaxy. Robert spoke again, his voice steady, filling the chamber. This is not the end of the Council. It is your choice what you become. You can adapt or you can fade. But know this, we will not fade. We will not wait. Humanity has gone beyond. We have seen what lies past the edges of maps. We have built what you called impossible, and we will keep going. You may walk with us, or you may remain behind. The words carried no anger, no arrogance. They were simply truth. And the Council knew it. For a long time, no one spoke. The leaders looked at one another, weighing pride against survival. Finally, Alora stood. She bowed her head toward the humans. I will walk with you. My people will walk with you. Not because we must, but because we should. Others followed slowly. Not all. Some remained silent, unwilling to give up their pride. But enough stood to make it clear. The galaxy was changing. As the meeting ended, Margaret felt a strange peace. She knew she was near the end of her life, but she also knew her people had fulfilled their promise. When they left, they had said, "If you do not adapt, you will not endure." Now, decades later, the Council had learned that truth. Some would endure, some would not. But humanity would go on, carrying the galaxy with them or without them. Outside the station, human ships moved across the stars, sleek and silent, guardians without crowns. They did not wait for orders. They did not seek thrones. They simply acted, shaping the galaxy by refusing to let it fall. And in the hearts of countless beings across the stars, one thought grew stronger with every passing day. Humanity had gone beyond, and the stars would never forget it. The Council's final plea had not been to humans. It had been to themselves. To change, to act, to survive. Humanity had returned, but not as servants, not as members, not as rulers. They had returned as a force of nature, a living proof of what it meant to endure. And so the galaxy entered a new age. Not the age of the Council, but the age of humanity. HFY.